Hey guys, Jay at Broader Performance here. Just a quick one. I kind of ran into this a while back. A friend of mine who's a transmission builder, he asked me about doing an AOD converter for him that was a non-lockup. Just, using the stock shafts, but non-lockup. And I says, yeah, I can do that. He says, well, how much? I gave him a price on it. And he says, oh man, be honest with you. This other guy I buy converters from, he does them a lot cheaper. So, well, what's he doing them for? And he gave me the price, and I says, man, seriously? A non-lockup? You sure it's non-lockup? Yeah, non-lockup. I'll call him right now. Okay. Gets this guy on the phone. Hey, man, how much for a non-lockup? And he gives that price. I says, well, man, I'll be honest with you. That's a hell of a deal, and I'll be calling him myself because there's just no way I can do it for that. So, long story short, here's what we found out. It wasn't really a non-lockup, and that's why it was so cheap. So, what does this mean? How do we know? Pretty easy to tell. So what you do with your converter all together, and I've got this apart with the turbine here, that way you can see, but you can do this with the converter assembled. So just take your long input shaft, slide that out of the transmission, drop it inside the converter, and spline it into where your spline this into the turbine. If you can spin this, and see how this spins, and it's not trying to spin the whole converter, because normally if it's a lockup, when you go to spin this, it's coupled directly to the cover, and I'm going to show you that in a second here. If it's converted to non-lockup, this will spin like a regular converter will when you put the input shaft in. Most converters, if you put the input shaft into the turbine splines, it should spin freely. So if it does not, it's a lockup, and that's normal. But if it's a deal where somebody has sold you this converter as a non-lockup, and you put your input shaft in to check it, and it won't turn, well, it's a lockup converter, so you need to address that. And let me show you the difference here. Pull this shaft back out. So this here, these here, what they've done is there's a split input shaft on this transmission if you're not familiar with it. And basically these two splines are welded together. They're married to each other. And give me 1 second here. Let me remove this. Okay, sorry about that. I couldn't grab that with one hand. So what normally is there, you can see you have to retrofit a bushing into here for that to now turn. But originally you had this. Okay, this is a damper, and this is spot welded directly to the cover. I've cut it off and removed it, obviously, and this is where your input shaft splines into. Now, this does not turn; it's spot welded to this cover normally. And what these springs are, so basically, when the lockup comes in, basically on this transmission, when you shift into third, lockup happens at the same time. So I'm going to go over that operation on an AOD and the difference. AOD is kind of a unique animal, but I'll do that in another video sometime. But so basically, these springs, a lot of lockup converters have these. So it's just kind of a cushion when it initially locks up. The springs kind of flex and take some of that shock load away. So when you're actually going to convert this to a non-lockup, this gets removed. And then you have to retrofit this bushing in here. And then you buy these splines So it's a two-piece assembly. You can see there they're welded together. So both input shafts are now tied together, and then this is just going to sit in there. And there's a bushing and a thrust washer, and that'll now rotate and operate, non-lockup. And in another video, I'll go over the pros and cons of doing this. There's a lot of advantages to it, but you do lose your non-lockup. So anyways, I found that interesting, and I just wanted to point this out and show you how to check if you actually have a non-lockup AOD or not. All factory ones were a lockup, but if you're buying one from somebody and they tell you it's non-lockup and you do the input shaft test, you can know, if it is or not. What we found out is that the shop thought, the converter shop, they thought, and they weren't lying to them or trying to be deceitful or anything, they just didn't know, but what they were doing, I don't exactly know how they were doing it, but they were removing this damper, and basically these splines were just welded into the cover. They thought by eliminating the damper, they were eliminating lockup. And all that's doing is just eliminating that cushion when you make that 2-3 shift. And that's all that does. It doesn't actually eliminate lockup. So this is just something... These guys just build converters, they don't build transmissions. So sometimes converter builders don't really understand the transmission that the converter goes to that well. And there's, some other issues with this where you have oil that passes through the converter for your cool and lube circuits and things. And some of these converter builders don't understand this. And so that's one of the things that's kind of an advantage to, if you're building torque converters, to understand how the unit works and the flow path of the oil, know where the oil comes in, know where the oil exits and things like that. But anyways, I just found that very interesting on these AODs, and I don't know if anybody else has run into this or anybody else was doing them this way, where they were just only eliminating the damper and not really truly eliminating lockup, and just being confused by that. So anyways, just a little tip here for you. Hope that helps if you're in the market for one of these converters. We'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.